Now we're going to cover one of my favorite subjects, bends. You know, that's what separates blues guitar from jazz guitar and a lot of other styles. Why do we bend strings? Well, we discussed this earlier. It's to emulate the human voice. Now, one of the things we have over the piano, I love piano, it's one of my favorite instruments, but they can't play in the cracks. They've got half-step segments. They can't get the notes in between. You know, on the keyboard you have the bend wheel and things like that. But we can do all those great little vocal mannerisms by bending the string along the fret axis, which means down to the ground or up to the ceiling. We're going to primarily talk about bending the top three strings, I mean in terms of pitch, first, second, and third strings. I'm a big fan of learning how to bend those first, then you can work on the lower strings. You might see me demonstrate something on the lower strings, but like I said, if you're just starting out, work on your upper strings. Here is a rule, and I'm kind of dogmatic about this: bend up to the ceiling. What's going to happen? Again, you're going to use your bicep in the same manner that you did when you were bending for vibrato, but you got bigger intervals and you need the strength and the leverage. Pulling down, you don't have as much control, especially when we start talking about bent string vibrato, and I'm going to cover that in this segment. When you bend strings, let's just start off by bending with your third finger. If you just bent with your third finger, that's going to be a real workout, and it can be done, and I want to stress that I'm showing you traditional blues guitar. If I were teaching you country guitar with all the pedal steel licks and things like that, then you would be holding your hand more of a classical posture sometimes, using just your fingers to bend strings, but generally you want to learn that after you learn how to play using your forearm and your bicep for your strength. All right, so reinforced fingerings. That simply means if you're bending with your third finger, you're going to place your second finger behind it and distribute the workload evenly between both fingers. You're gripping around. It's very important that your wrist is straight, and that diagonal posture, you can't really see it. I'll try to show you. I'm looking at the monitor here. Do you see how I have the neck actually diagonally moving across, laid in my palm, between my index finger knuckle and back here on the little finger corner of my wrist? That's how you just kind of lay your hand in there. You don't want to put your palm right up against the neck, nor do you want to bend your wrist out and have this angle and not be near the neck. So if you just let your arm hang by your side and you put your thumb over the top, you'll be in a good position. I've had some people that have a lot of trouble getting this, but look at the hand position, and hopefully at the end of this video we're going to show some shots from over the shoulder from the player's viewpoint, and I think picture tells 1,000 words. It'll help you out. All right, when you go to bend strings, where you press down is going to be an issue in all of your playing. I want you to experiment with where you press down. Now, if your fingers are too upright, you'll actually have more difficulty. You don't always play right on the tips of your fingers. You place a little bit back on the pad. Make sure you get the bone involved, and you get good placement. Your initial grip, I call it the setup. When you go to bend a string, make sure your setup is in place before you bend. I've seen a lot of people go and start a bend, and if you start a bend and you don't have a good setup, you're in trouble. You're going to drop the string. You won't be able to keep your sustain, whatever the case may be. So let's say I play a lick, and I'm just going to go from the E to the G, and then I'm going to bend up to the A, which is the next note up in the scale. Watch this. The E I'm playing here, and I don't have my hand back like this, do I? I've got my third finger poised directly above. Then in slow motion, you see how I cymbal into this formation, then I can bend up. All right, intonation is very important. Make yourself a backing track. If you can, just go. There's my A7 chord. Notice how I've got the A up on top, so that's my reference point. So then when I bend up, now don't try to put a vibrato in on it yet. Just work on playing in tune. And here's a great little exercise. I'm going to talk a lot more about the right hand later on, but staccato means you're cutting the note short. If I play, see, I'm just marcato, accented, and very, very short, extremely choppy. I tell people, pretend that the string is an electromagnet and pretend that the pick is metal. So you play the note and it just powers on, it holds it right up against it. You can't even pull it off, so it just immediately pulls it in. Now if I were to go back and forth, watch what I'm going to do here. Ideally, you want to make sure that you can play it to where it sounds as if you were playing the notes in two different frets, but you're actually working in the bend. Now this is what gets me in trouble. I have a lot of guitars. I love to play them and collect them. So I don't stay on any one instrument and get intimately acquainted with it and real comfortable. This is the one area that I suffer with, is it'll take me a couple minutes to get acclimated to each of my guitars, because if it's got a trim unit or it's a different scale or something like that, different size frets, all those factors can affect, especially when you start doing pre-bends. You got to know exactly where it is. So save your money and just stay on a couple of guitars, but get real comfy with this. And when you play it real staccato like that, you're going to hear the pitch. Your hearing isn't clouded by the Hawaiian thing, you know, bending up to the note. After you can do that, then you want to work on simply bending up and then releasing. Let me put a little gain on. Now what we've done is combined a bend, a release, and the vibrato. Okay? I'm going to tell you something. When you sustain is a function of how well you keep the string in contact to the fret, with the fret. When you bend, you're naturally going to squeeze because the string tension is increasing. I've seen a lot of people on their release have the note just kind of sizzle and flutter out on them. You know, it kind of sizzles and all that. It's because they're not keeping the string in contact with the fingerboard. Now, 99.9% of electric guitars have a convex fingerboard. Pretend that the fingerboard was concave and rub the string, actually rub it down into the fret. You can't really see it, but I'm doing an exaggeration of the move. I'm bending up, and then as I release, I actually move my wrist down to the ground, over kind of diagonally like that. And I really put a lot of pressure into that note. Now when I'm playing, I don't do that. This is a training technique. I do it to a certain degree, but and you get it to cry. There are certain overtones that you want to work with on this. So all of your bends, and practice them very, very slowly, because remember, you're not just training your hands, you're training your ears. You've got to hear all these microtones to emulate the voice. Let's take this minor pentatonic scale to close this segment. You have 5 different notes. Look at the intervals between them. They're all major second intervals, which means a whole step, except for the 5 in the flat 7 and the 1 in the flat 3. Now you want to play along the string axis, so let's say I'm playing in A. If I want to stay on the second string, for example, here's my D to E. That would be 4 to 5. Then 5 to flat 7. You see, that's a long bend. Now on this note, if you need to, use all 3 fingers to bend, and down the lower frets, you can put 2 fingers in the same fret, depending upon your string gauge and your strength. That's a minor third bend. Then flat 7 to 1, another major second, 1 to flat 3, and then the flat 3 to the 4. So you want to work up and down. I'm going to show you in the next segment a great little exercise just for this.